Thank you so much all. The lunch is being served at the Inspire Hall and near to the Desire Hall, deck area. And we will resume next session at 2:30. Thank you, everyone. Now we are starting our session 2. This session is going to be about commercialization of EO data, unlocking new revenue streams. For this, I have two privilege to invite session moderator, Ms. Annaya Narain. Please, ma'am, welcome to the stage. And over to you, ma'am. You can start the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I know it is a tad bit difficult when you host a session after lunch, and somehow it so happens that I always get to host a session after lunch. So now that we are beginning the session after lunch, may I hear a good afternoon from everyone? All right, now it seems like we have started a session which is going to talk about money. And if you're going to talk about money, if you're going to talk about commercialization, if you're going to talk about revenue, we need enthusiasm in the room. We need everybody to focus on, because this is where everything ends up. This is where all our focus has to be. So when we talk about Earth observation, and when we look at Earth observation and how it has evolved over the last couple of years, we see that we have transitioned in terms of how the cost of satellite infrastructure has reduced, how data is more accessible, how we have transitioned from not only requiring raw data, but also requiring analytics, and how business models have evolved. This session today, we are not only focusing on revenue per se, but we are focusing on why we need to identify new revenue streams and why these new revenue streams are important, not only from an Indian context, but from a very important business context for the Indian space economy. So I'm sure all of us are aware that the Indian space economy has been projected, it has been projected that we're going to be a 44 billion economy by 2033. And if we have to be a 44 billion space economy by 2033, it is very important that we look at how our business models are evolving. What is the value that we are offering to our customers, to our users? What is the benefits? What is the different models that we are looking at when we are working with the government, when we are working with the users, when we are looking at collaborating with each other, as well as the academia and research institutions? How can we identify these new revenue streams? How can we make a difference in providing services, in providing value to the stakeholders that we often cater to as an industry? So it is an honor for me to be here, and I would like to thank SIA for having me here to moderate this very, very interesting panel. I have an esteemed set of panelists with me today who come from different walks of life with varied years of experience. I would like to invite them one by one on stage. We have, unfortunately, I would like to mention that we don't have one panelist with us today. However, the four panelists that we have today are going to throw light in what I believe is going to be a very insightful and a fruitful discussion. So I would first like to invite Mr. Vasudeva Rao Vemana, Head Pre-Sales Planet Labs. May we have a round of applause, please? Mr. Deepak Pareekh, Founder, HnyB Tech-Incubations Private Limited. Mr. Árisz, 4IG Space and Defense Technologies. And Dr. Debjyoti Pal, Senior Vice President, Galaxeye Space. Thank you, panelists, for being here. It is an honor for me to moderate a session with all of you. To begin the session, I would like to pose a question to all of you. Earth observation, as I mentioned, is undergoing a shift, and we are seeing a shift from it being a government-led capability to becoming a more commercially driven enabler of digital transformation. From your own respective vantage points, what do you see as the most compelling opportunity and the most urgent challenge in unlocking the full potential of Earth observation for economic and social value creation? And I would also request you to use this opening question to give a 2 minutes opening remark about you and your organization. Thank you.
Starting by me?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vasudeva. I'm a pre-sales head for APAC. I have 25 years of experience, so that's all about remote sensing. All right. All right, so when we talk about Planet, I'm representing Planet. So we are an, satellite company which provides data, near daily images for the entire globe, which has been collected with various hundreds of satellites which have been available to us, right? Which gives you a lot of changes which are visible, accessible, and actionable. And based on these hundreds of satellites, we have archive images coming from almost like 7-8 years, which can be used for running the various types of analytics, insights, change detections, which can be also used for predictive analysis. And if you are looking at various applications which has been there, agriculture is one of our major areas of importance, defense, and then maritime domain. So these are the areas which I've been talking about. At any point of time, we have an images which is nearly around 3,000 shots are available, which can be utilized to study the past trends of changes which have been happening on that, and everyday collections of image can be used to study the futuristic trends as part of that. So that's it.
What would be the opportunity and the challenge that you see in the Earth observation industry today?
So when you look at opportunities, yes, I mean, so we have been democratizing the satellite data, not only for government customers who have been utilizing it, it can be useful for various industries which we provide as a raw data as well as an APIs towards that, which can be integrated into your workflows as an API, so that you could leverage the data into your workflows, which can be of very much beneficial.
Thank you. Dr. Deb.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have more than 3 decades of experience in remote sensing and geospatial industry. I represent a company which is Galaxeye. Don't go by my white beard. My company is hardly 4 years old. And we are the first one in this industry which is coming up with a satellite, or rather a constellation of satellite, which will have SAR and optical loaded on the same. So objective is, as you know, especially in the tropical countries or tropical regions, cloud is one of the biggest challenge. When we look at optical, during the rainy season, there are many users sitting here, they will vouch for this, that when it comes to rainy season, the data interpretation is a challenge. Whereas SAR, it's very effective in cloud and nighttime imaging, but it's very difficult to interpret. So what we thought is, if we can put both of them in the same satellite and have a same look angle, we can capture the data at same time, fuse that, and take care of the cloud, and also the interpretability of SAR. That's how we were formed. We are going to launch our first satellite in this year end. And we also already have developed a drone-based SAR and EO to prove our technology and it works or not. We have done around 5 NCNCs or projects with different government organizations. Details, if you wish, we can discuss later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deb. Árisz.
Hi everyone. It's an honor to be in this panel. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Árisz Kecskés, and I'm a corporate strategy manager for 4IG Space and Defense Technologies. 4IG Space and Defense Technologies has been formed only last year, but we represent a couple of portfolio companies who cover most of the satellite value chain. Our idea is to become a relevant player in the European and global remote sensing and SATCOM service provisioning domains. And to do so, we have portfolio companies who cover the different parts of the value chain, from satellite manufacturing to ground segment and mission operations, up to the data processing and data storage of the remote sensing satellites that we will start to launch from 2028 onwards. What I see as the main challenge on the commercial EO data side is to have sufficient awareness in these connected industries where it's really provable, and not just among space people who talk to space people, but where we can really prove to these connected industries that there is value coming from the geospatial data in these industries.
Thank you.
And the biggest opportunity, I think, now globally is on the defense/governmental side of these custom data that is needed from defense and governmental stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, thanks a lot for inviting me. So this is Deepak Pareekh. I'm founder of HnyB Tech-Incubation. It's a boutique consulting company which works on the intersection of food, agriculture, policy, and technology for sure. We work with public and private sector, advising them on various aspects, and specifically on how to scale up technology innovations in agriculture. Now, coming to the opportunity, like there are 500 million farmers across the globe. If we are able to just extract $10 out of them, that itself makes a huge market. Now, agriculture impact all of us because I believe all of us eat food, right? So if we eat food, then actually food only comes from agriculture. Maybe the present generation might be thinking that you download it from internet or Swiggies and Zomatos. They are making it, not the farmers. But definitely all of us are, I think, having gray hairs, and we know that actually food comes from agriculture. I believe geospatial technology will be playing a humongous role when it comes to yield prediction, which is very important for policy decision, whether it is public sector or private sector. There is a huge opportunity there. Second, geospatial technology can also be used in increasing productivity, because when we talk about precision smart agriculture cannot work out unless you are able to have a pixel which tells you what's happening on the farm. And this is where I believe that the second level of growth opportunity, revenue opportunities are there. And third is where actually connecting the markets to the farm. Now, from all the way from the farm gate to your plate, the traceability, it can be enabled by geospatial technology. And I'll just give you a simple example. If I'm able to know where all my warehouses are in India, and you'll be surprised to know that actually still today, we are not having all the warehouses being geotagged. Now, if I do have that, then immediately I will be able to find out exactly where my crop should be stored so that I'm able to use it. Because in agriculture, you harvest once and you eat whole of the year. So the storage and logistics plays a very important role. So I think these three opportunities are humongous. And we have just talked about, I think, $40 billion. Believe me, if the people sitting in this room who are into geospatial technology, they start focusing and creating valuable solution for the farmers and the ecosystem players in agriculture, that can be 10x of what number you said.
Thank you so much, Deepak. So I think all of us heard what were the different opportunities, more opportunities and less challenges that we currently see in the Earth observation industry. But when we talk about how do we commercialize it, there are different kinds of revenue models that we have been focusing on. So traditionally, as I mentioned, it has been a government-backed industry. There have been focus on traditional government business models, grants, data selling. But however, as democratization has happened, as focus has shifted to commercialization, we have seen that there have been new upcoming revenue models that have come up and that have transformed how this industry has shaped. Now, what I would like to understand is, and maybe Vasudeva, we can start from you, understanding that Planet Labs is a globally recognized company when it comes to Earth observation data, as well as analytics and insights. How have you seen this transformation happening, and how do you address this transformation in your organization? What are the decision factors?
True. So let's take back to the previous scenarios of Earth observation where people used to buy a one-time data and they used to play with one-time data. Now people has a lot of requirements of getting data in every week or every month or every quarterly or half-yearly based on various applications required. So they should be having a data available for them so that they could use it in various solutions which is required. So thing is availability of a data. So rather than just giving a pixels, if insights is also provided from the providers, which can be integrated or delivered as an APIs, which can be integrated into your existing application, whether it's a government or commercialization or private players. That's one shift which needs to be taken. So providing the data as an APIs and integrating into the existing solutions is one. Second thing is providing an insights is more important based on the different solutions required. So you need to categorize your solution based on the requirements is second areas. Second thing, cloud is also more important. So one big challenge with EO data is it's a humongous amount of data which will obviously get delivered. If you could able to filter it out and try to utilize cloud environments, which will be much faster in processing it. So these are the trends which are keeping on changing. There is a lot more changes which is going to come in the near future.
Thank you so much. Dr. Deb, my question to you is, it's again on the revenue models part of it. So we've gone from data as a service, now we're moving towards analytics as a service, and there's something called as infrastructure as a service as well as platform as a service. When you look at these revenue models or business models, what are your thoughts on it for the Indian market?
See, as you rightly said, new models are coming up, and this is giving a flexibility to the users based on their budget and their need. They can decide what kind of platform or services they will like to opt for. So, as Vasudeva was also talking about, analytics as a service, these are giving user a flexibility, and user is able to choose the right thing. Hence, the interpretability, usage, and turnaround time, that has improved. Right? Now, in addition to this, there is another thing which is coming up is edge computing. Right? So now you are processing your data in the sky itself. So when you are downloading it, you are getting the data almost ready form. Right? In that way, user can take that data, do the analysis within couple of hours, and take a near real-time decision. So this kind of transformation and services are very important, and it keeps on evolving. And that is the best, because user is the king and user is getting more advantages out of it.
Just a follow-up question on that, Dr. Deb, because I know Galaxeye is working on the fisheries sector, which is a very unique sector to work on. So what has been your what is your perspective on how has been your experience when it comes to fisheries sector, and how Earth observation data is being used in this one very new sector finding application?
See, that's one reason we chose that sector, because we wanted to pick up something which is still unorganized, and technology should be handed over to those users who are not organized and they are following a traditional model. The revenue part may not be very lucrative, but the technology part and usage part and adoption and awareness is high. Now, if you look at, even Government of India is talking of giving subsidy to fisheries insurance. Then again, geospatial and EO data will be very important. That is why we chose this, and I am sure other organizations also are targeting these niche application areas. I know Planet is doing for soil moisture. So picking up super specialized application areas, developing a product. We have not talked about another product which we are developing for defense, where we are talking of auto co-registration, data fusion, change localization. So again, that helps the defense users not to waste time in co-registration. Generally, they take half an hour or 1 hour. Our software can do it in 2 minutes to 5 minutes, depending on the machine. And then fusion gives, as I was talking about, the interpretability enhancements. And change localization, because many a times when you look at object identification, you always have a doubt whether you have picked up the right one or is it a false positive. When I talk about change localization in the entire image, I gave you 20 points where we feel there are changes. Now, user with his expertise goes and looks at those 20 points only and picks up the right data. So this kind of effectiveness in the solution and applications is very much required, because user is not going to waste time in doing the analysis. They want the result in near real time. And that's why these applications are the key.
Thank Thank you, Dr. Deb. From your point of fisheries, I would quickly go to first Dr. Deepak, to you, because we were discussing this prior to the session and understanding your focus on agriculture. You're not only dealing with just a commercial sector, you're dealing with farmers. Farmers who traditionally in India, if I have to look at it, do not understand the value that Earth observation can bring to them, or they don't appreciate it probably because we haven't communicated to them well. How do we commercialize Earth observation to them? What should be the focus area for us as stakeholder ecosystem to commercialize Earth observation data, the value added services to these farmers?
Sure. So first of all, let me clear a misconception, because having worked with the farmers on the ground across close to 30 countries, and I can be having maybe close to 10,000 farmers' phone number, I can directly access them, call them and talk to them. We believe farmers are not appreciating technology. We believe that farmers are not ready to spend for technology. It's a myth. Just think of a farmer in a country which is in global south, ready to stand in queue for 8 hours just to buy a bag of urea. He's ready to pay the black. He's ready to take hit by the police danda just to buy a bag of urea. Why? Nobody communicated them anything about urea, but urea when applied give them visible result, straight away yield increase, and they can see that my investment is going to get me returns. Now we smart people, we go to farmers and we say that, hey, do you know that there is a satellite upside? It will give you NDVI, which is X, soil moisture at 2.5 centimeter, close to X, and then you'll be having a red spot somewhere at the so-and-so latitude and longitude in your farm, and then this is what I'm giving you, and you idiot, you don't understand that. He'll say, okay, thank you, goodbye. Now if I'm able to give him what I say inside as a service, hey, left side 10 feet, there is infestation, please go and observe. Looks like deficiency of boron. Yes, it is boron deficiency, farmer says yes. This is the application of nano boron based solution which you should do, right? Do it on 5th day, because 2nd day it seems like there is a rain possibility and you won't get the effective application. He'll pay for that. But what we do is that we try to go and sell him solution, we try to go and sell him technology, and he doesn't believe in you, he doesn't trust you. And unfortunately, the lack of trust, we say that actually the lack of intelligence. So that's wrong. So when we talk about EO data, there is humongous opportunity. They said $10 a farmer, they will pay. But what you have to do is that in our corporate culture, we talk about return of investment. Why farmer would not be looking at return of investment? Right? You give him $1,000 return of investment on $10, believe me, people will stand in queue just like urea to buy your solution. But because you are not able to give that 10x or 100x of return to him, he's not interested. So I see going forward, farmers who definitely are very keen to buy such solution, and we are already seeing the penetration of such services at a huge level. In fact, if you see that the government agri-tech, farmers are very keen to use it because they know that actually with my just mobile number, somebody will be able to give me advice of actually what I should be growing at my farm. So those type of solutions are already picking up. Now when government is able to do that, right? Private sector always look at let the government take the first step, let them lose money, let them give me a successful business model, then I'll jump onto it, and then I'll start making money. No, you'll have to change that mindset. In fact, the 1970s, US Department of Agriculture, they invested heavily in EO data, heavily. And they're reaping the benefit today. Across the world, any part of the world, in fact, you'll be surprised, there are a lot of bureaucrats sitting in Krishi Bhavan in Delhi. They wait for 2nd week of every month to get USDA report, because they know that actually it is not based on some old way of doing crop cutting experiment, but it will give me global analysis based on actually remote sensing and EO data. So that is what I'm saying, that the value. And can you put a value on your food security? Food security equivalent to your national security. Just think of a scenario that actually US knows that actually you'll be having deficit of wheat, and then they manipulate market and actually ensure that you buy wheat for $10 more. Now this is what we are ending up to. So what I'm saying is that EO is having a humongous possibility in government sector for sure. Private sector, I think you'll have to start working in understanding the farmer. I think there is a humongous lack of understanding of how farmer thinks, what they think, and then we think this guy is not ready to adopt. So I believe going forward, understand the challenge, solve the challenge, and you'll have a humongous market.
Thank you, Deepak. So just a follow-up question on that. You mentioned a very important point of return on investment. Often we don't see stakeholders within any community, vertical community, talking about the return on investment generated of a technology use. Should return of investment also become key metrics when we talk about how a revenue model should be drafted by a company? Maybe that will help them.
Yeah, 100%. So we will give a smart potato project in Banaskantha and Sabarkantha area in Gujarat. I'm saying 3 years back. And within 2 seasons, using not just TO, but multiple technologies, we were able to increase the income by 53%, right? And when you are able to do that, farmer is very keen to it. They said actually, like, they themselves said that give us a subscription model, na koi aapka membership hai kya? Right? So this is where actually, like, if you give value to farmer, and I believe this is how, like, the subscription models will evolve, right? And the subscription model will definitely be directly connected to what value you are able to deliver to them. If you are not able to give value in 1 season, next season they'll say thank you, goodbye. So work on a freemium model, work with them for 1 season, and unfortunately 1 season in agriculture is not like a month or like in 15 days. It has to be a cycle. So you do 1 Kharif or 1, I would suggest you do a Rabi, it's just a shorter cycle. You give value to them, and believe me, Kharif they'll come back to you and they'll subscribe to your service. But give them the value.
I think a very valid point. Going from a freemium model to a subscription model, that kind of convinces the stakeholders also that there is a possibility, there is a value that they have seen in the freemium model, and then they can move to a subscription model. Very well point.
I'll add one more thing. So when you collect so much of data on the farmers, right? And believe me, like, by just making them, it's anonymous data, this data is equivalent to gold. You go to agri input companies, if you tell a buyer or Syngenta or FMC, that I'm having, like, complete crop cycle, right, of a farmer, and this is what data I'm having. I cannot give you name and numbers, but I can give you those typical patterns. Believe me, that data is equivalent to gold, because, like, you are reducing their product development cycle from 8 to 9 years to 3 years. Now, those type of thinking has to be there. I would not say it's out of the box thinking. I'm saying start doing the in the box thinking.
Thank you. Árisz, my question to you, because you come from a very traditional domain, defense domain, right? And you come from experience from outside India, from European context. So if you could throw light to this discussion that we are having today on how the revenue models have shaped up in Europe, and how do you see what we can take from the European context and probably implement here in India?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so the way our business model has evolved was that, yes, the main focus area was and still is defense applications, because what we've seen is that there you can really make the biggest impact on having a custom solution that can be provided to these specific, because there you need to have first-party data that you receive from your own infrastructure. You can build out the infrastructure yourself, and then that gives an edge to a company who has this quasi-vertically integrated portfolio down. But what we've also looked at, and this is something that is of strategic importance for us, is that we really want to look at the commercial application of the satellite infrastructure we are in the process of building out. And we have looked at agricultural use cases, and we have faced these challenges. We had these conversations early on, a couple of years back, to see whether commercial data acquisition to farmers would make commercial sense, or if that could really be a viable model. Hungary, in comparison to India, is very insignificant in terms of size, but it's an agricultural country. What we've seen that there needs to be a critical mass of land mass that you manage for it to make sense for farmers to have it, because we are still waiting for a generation shift. And then, as you said, trust is something that we don't have when we look at farmers. And as such, it would be extremely difficult to make these commercial use cases for older farmers who really rely on these older, less technologically savvy technologies when it comes to agriculture. When it comes to the European context, agricultural use cases for EO data is the biggest driver within Europe as well and everywhere. When it comes to food security, this is something that is a key priority for the European Union as well. What makes it a bit more difficult for commercial stakeholders is that there is a European infrastructure that provides Sentinel data to anyone who wants to use them. Obviously, there is some processing that needs to be done afterwards. There are some business models that rely on them, and there are some startups who take these Sentinel data and then process it and provide this insight as a service, or aim to provide insight as a service. Nevertheless, for agricultural use cases, there are these Sentinel data that can be used by anyone, and that makes it a bit more difficult to build a very reliable revenue model onto this. Or you just take that data and then refine it and then package it into a solution that is actually actionable.
Thank you. One of the very important things here is when we talk about commercialization, and I think it was mentioned in the last session also when we were discussing the government marketplace, the GEM portal, was to conduct a user mapping. And the focus was that when we are developing a commercial product, a product that is viable to the market, we need to look at a product that is well accepted by the users. So in your own respective organizations, how do you go about doing that? I mean, there's always a gap that is seen. It is considered that there's a gap between the industry and the users, which is the biggest challenge. And particularly in Indian context, where we are seeing that the maturity level of Earth observation is rising gradually, and particularly with the Indian space policy being in place, we are seeing that it's becoming more recognized, people are becoming more appreciative that, okay, there is something called as Earth observation data that can provide value to the stakeholders. What is it that you do when you develop a commercially viable product in your respective companies?
True. So are you talking about commercialization of product into a GEM portal, or it's commercial?
Separate from GEM portal.
Or separate from GEM portals. See, one thing is to say that industries are available and they are putting a lot of innovations in creating solutions, right? But at the end of the day, a government has a lot of policies. If that innovations from the industry and the government policies come together, there are a lot of problems which will get solved, both in the government side as well as the revenue generation for the industrial purposes of that. That's one factor. Second thing, when you wanted to work on the data, you have a commercial data which is available, and there are a lot of open source data which is also available. If you could able to create a platform which could fuse all this data together, where you have open source information, commercial data combined together, where you could able to create a very good solutions. For every what do you call verticalization. It could be agriculture, it could be defense, it could be forestry, it could be fisheries as an example. So these are the areas which needs to be moving forward, which we are already on the roadmap, where Planet has also created a Fusion as a platform which is integrating Planet data as well as another sources of information into one to create various other solutions. And when I said solutions, it is based on verticalization of solutions.
Thank you. Dr. Dev, what are your thoughts on that?
As Deepak pointed out, user is the key. So if you have to develop a successful solution which has to be accepted by the users, you need to spend time with the users. So when we did the Blue, which is the fisheries product, we learned that if we have to make this product, we have to sit with the users, understand. Thankfully, being a startup, we have that flexibility because, startups give that kind of flexibility. When you become a bigger organization, then the processes are in place, then this becomes maybe challenging. But with startups, we have that flexibility. We sat with the users, we worked with them, and that's why we could come up with a product which is acceptable by the fisheries. People are using it. ITC, Godrej, they are already our clients. It's only because we sat with the users. Similarly for defense, we sat with the users for around a year. Our senior people, those who are there, they worked with the client, they understood their needs. Then we started developing the product. If I go and launch a product without understanding user need, the product is not going to be accepted. That's what my take is.
A follow-up question on that, Dr. Deb. So, looking at how do you work with the government organizations in this case? How do you let the government priorities define the user needs for how your business needs to focus on?
See, here what we do, I can talk about ourselves, is we try to reach out to the government organizations and do a POC, no cost, no commitment, right? As I said, being a startup, we have that kind of flexibility, investor trust us, and that's why it happens. We do these kind of NCNC projects for 6 months, 8 months, and then we make the product in a phased-wise manner. Once it shapes up, one user is understanding it, then taking it to the market becomes much more easier. We are working with NESAC, we are working with Árisz, we are developing these kind of solutions. So when we come up with a white paper on these solutions, the user agencies will see the value to it. And that's how our approach is.
Thank you, Dr. Deb. I think that's a very valid point, and that also probably also talks about the ROI that you understand when you're creating that product.
Exactly.
Deepak sir, so even from an agriculture point of view, given your experience globally as well as from an Indian context, you mentioned that we move from a freemium model to an insight model. That would be a more viable model that we look at. How best can we communicate the value of having insights as a service? I don't know if you're doing enough job about communicating that.
See, actually, first of all, I just would like to touch upon 2 points which were shared by other panelists. So one thing is that the next generation of farmers would be using technology, and let the current generation of farmers wither away with their old age, and next generation will target. You won't have next generation farmers. If you go, in fact, talk to 100 farmers, 99% of them will say that I don't want my next generation to be doing farming. And the one person who would have said, I want my son to be a farmer, if you go and ask his son, he'll say that the old man has gone mad. Right? That's the reality of farming. So like, how many of you would be above 50? Can you raise your hands, please? Above 50. Yeah. Right. And sir, all of you use smartphones? Right. That's the answer, right? See, the problem is that we are so connected in our heart with technology. A technology which works has to be invisible.
Yes.
Right? If you give me a technology which is so complicated that I myself have to be a researcher to use it, I won't use it. Why Google succeeded? Why the Google Maps succeeded? And any other technology piece you pick up, right? They are so intuitive. The problem is that we see it intuitive from our mindset. Right swipe, left swipe. Go and develop it with the farmer. Understand actually what he thinks intuitive. So making the insight reach to them is not a rocket science. Again, it's about like putting effort. Who will go to farmer, sit with him for 3 months in such a heat and right? Let me sit in my air-conditioned room, develop a code and say that my code is great, but farmer is stupid, he's not using it. Work with the farmers, believe me, this generation, irrespective of their 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, they'll adopt technology if it is intuitive. Second point I wanted to touch upon is very rightly said by sir, right? The government. We are ready to work with government and do typically like, no cost pilots. How many would do that with the farmers? Right? Not many. You start doing that, build the trust. Now, how the trust would be built? Here I would appreciate Government of India, right? They have taken a lot of steps, right, to push through and give support to tech industry. Ministry of Cooperation has been created. It is having access to every possible farmer in India. Work with them. Tell them that actually we want to give our solution to the farmers at no cost, right? For one season. NAFED, NCCF, IFCO, CRIPCO, they will promote your technology. They are in for it. But the problem is that actually we go to NAFED and say that actually I want to sell a technology to all your farmers, and then they say, like, come on, we are cooperatives, right? Let it work and then we are okay to like, if you charge me. So please use the Ministry of Cooperation. They have huge access, right? They have on-ground presence. They have wide network. Work with, in fact, you'll be surprised, the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, they have created studios free of cost to be used by technology providers. Okay, please come, record your video, we'll publish or we'll broadcast it on DD, Kisan, it will reach to the farmer. But the problem is that nobody wants to take that effort, and they said, okay, fine, I'll give you a proposal. You pay me money, and then it's government's headache to see to it that actually it's work for the farmer or not. And if it doesn't work, then the government takes the hit. And believe me, we live in a democracy where political economics is more important than the economics, right? No government will push anything to farmer until unless they are so convinced that actually there is zero chance of any backlash. So this is where I believe, like, sharing insight to the farmer, there are ways and means available. We need to create those solutions, and please don't see it and believe me, like, if we can put a $1 trillion in developing state-of-the-art aircraft which can, like, shoot missile and kill people, why can't we spend $1 trillion to create a solution which will be globally helpful to the farmer, which ensures our food security? So killing people is more important, or the security of the people is more important? As a human race, that we have to think. I'll rest there.
Thank you, Deepak sir. So I think what you're also saying through this is we shouldn't just focus on user mapping, but we should focus on user engagement more and more dedicated, which is what was pointed out earlier as well, which is more dedicated efforts from each and every technology provider to not just create a solution thinking that it'll be a business by itself, but create a solution after engaging with the user, whether there is a business there or not. So very valid point. Thank you for that. All three of you. Now, Árisz, I come to you. One of the interesting things that I've seen in your company's portfolio is the vertical integrated solution that you have. So if you could talk us through on what the vertical integrated solution is, and how does it solve a problem, and what does the business model look like?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So the idea when this holding structure was created was to be able to strategically have control over our supply chain so that there isn't, we've seen in the past that having risks around your supply chain and different providers on the satellite value chain can create huge problems, and this can create a lot of trust issues with end customers, especially if one of the main customer base that you're trying to develop and build these solutions for are either governments or ministries of defense. As such, what we've seen is that we try to have, and also we didn't really want to create another large-scale organization in space where it's over procedural, where you cramp everything into one super large organization where you have, I don't know, manufacturing, ground segment, mission operations, data processing in one organization, where the processes, the governance is extremely different from these different parts of the value chain. So the way we positioned ourselves was to create an essentially oversight and management structure to manage the different parts of the value chain through the portfolio companies, but the knowledge and capability build-up that are necessary are being done within the portfolio companies themselves. So we have a portfolio company called Remred, which is looking after the spacecraft manufacturing part of the value chain. We have a portfolio company called HDT, who are looking after the ground segment and missions operations part. And then internally, due to some other cross-segment synergies, we are building the geodata analytics and storage within the holding structure itself. But the idea, launch, unfortunately, is something that we weren't ambitious enough to attempt, but we wanted to go through the whole chain and be able to provide an end-to-end solution to customers when they say, okay, I want to have this specific data, either processed or unprocessed in governmental or MOD requested. Most of the time they want to operate or then process their own data so that you don't have, due to security issues. But the idea is to be able to provide the whole chain so that you can really customize and configure their data needs to their given solutions.
Thank you. So are we looking at a full stack solution here? Is that what it is?
Yes. And then the first satellite program that we are developing is being built on this model, and this model is something that we want to then develop with other nations and other international partners as well.
Thank you. So on that, I'll come to a very important question, considering that you're looking at the Indian market from a very focused point of view. What are your thoughts on public-private partnerships and how important it is if we want to talk about commercialization of Earth observation?
Yeah, so what we've seen, and this is not specific only to India, but what our market research showed is that in India, or mainly any other non-European countries where we see potential of expanding to, in the US, etc., PPPs are extremely important and essential when it comes to any significant activity on a market. And we've seen India as a huge opportunity where we can do good collaborations, but for that, we need to find a very good local partner. What we've seen, as we are a satellite bus manufacturer on one hand, we've seen a lot of excellent electro-optical payload providers here in India, where we've seen a huge opportunity to create a partnership, have the G2G element, facilitate this partnership as well, and then create a joint venture structure with a PPP element. This seems to be a potentially or hopefully successful model for us to really get a foothold in the Indian market.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on it, Vasudeva and Dr. Deb?
In terms of PPP?
In terms of PPP.
Okay, right. So when we talk about projects, mostly which has been done by government, whether it's an infrastructure development or in terms of agricultural forecasting and many other things. So that's one part where the policies are being laid properly by that. But when industry also comes forward and based on the innovation that they have been doing by startups or anybody out there, so collaborating between those two factors, one, the innovations from the industries and the policies with the government combined together, which can create valuable solutions, which can address a lot of areas which be there, right? So data is just one part of all that. So getting the workflows done, integrating it will be the key challenges out there, and that's one factor. Second thing is, since industry is investing a lot and there is an education which is required at the government level also, where we need to educate the decision makers on the EO data, so like how it has been helpful, maybe for fisheries, maybe for maritime domain awareness, right? So that's another area which it needs to be there. So human resource trainings for the policymakers is also more important to that. So that's where we could able to say the industries as well as the government will play a good role in improving or developing the country's revenues.
Thank you. Dr. Deb.
Well, PPP model is very common in other sectors and industry, very new. And this, in my opinion, PPP models give a boost to the industry because people know that there is a government commitment, money coming in, policy support is there. If you look at the space PPPs, there are two I can certainly mention. One is in space launching a PPP, which they call EOPPP. People and critics can say this has that flaw, that is that flaw, but every model has some issues which you should overlook. Overall, there is a point where they are talking of launching satellites from Indian company, which will make India have their own satellites, their own data, which they can access anytime, right? So they are coming up with a constellation of 12 satellites by EOPPP, and specifications are world class. Commitment from government is there. Similarly, if you look at, I will classify that also in EOPPP, defense officials can talk about that more, their SBS program, their SBS3 program, where there are 32 satellites which they are launching with the help of the startups, right? And sub-meter accuracy with daily revisit and all these things. So again, that has infused money, enthusiasm, and usage of the data in the ecosystem, right? The ecosystem, which is very new because ISRO has been managing this ecosystem for ages. Now when the startups have come in, other players have come in, this kind of EOPPP and SPS models will help the ecosystem thrive, grow, and become mature.
Thank you. I think that's a very valid point on PPP from all of you. Deepak, would you like to add something on it?
Yeah, sure. So actually, see, government has to understand definitely the sector, right, and the requirement of the sector, and then they can, like, stick their neck out. In fact, our Prime Minister long back when he was Chief Minister, he said that asarkari hai asarkari. That means private is more effective. That is what he said. Now, if we see that, like, the digital infrastructure in India is one of the best, right? The UPIs, the Aadhaar, right? We have been able to do it. The thing is that actually, are we able to tell the political class that investment, again, will give them political reward, right? As well as would change at the grassroots level, lives of people. I think they would invest, right? Whether it is PPP model or even the government's own investment. So I believe, like, it is about the industry stakeholders that see it from the perspective of, like, how the government would like to see it, right? And the vocabulary has to be right. And I've seen a lot of sometimes when the government is being engaged by private stakeholder, the vocabulary become too domain specific, which is not able to convince them that this is something which actually they would like to take it forward. And if you are able to explain them in just 2 lines, I believe, like, things do happen, magic do happen.
Thank you. One very important question here is this: when we are talking about a 44 billion space economy, the space economy is just not restricted to the domestic economy. It actually talks about, when we talk about commercialization also, it is not about just catering to the domestic market, but also catering to the foreign markets. India, as one of the leaders when it comes to the Knowledge Readiness Index, stands at 15th position, which is positioning us as somebody who can take charge of providing Earth observation-based commercial services to the global south. So if you look at it from that point of view, that not just focusing on the domestic market, but if we start focusing from a global south perspective, what should we as an industry do, and what are the necessary steps that can be taken in order to commercialize our services to the market outside India?
Can I start there?
Absolutely.
As you rightly said, a business can't thrive only with a domestic market. But domestic market helps us to grow. Once we set our feet domestically, we have a validation of our data. I can take it to the global market. Right? So we have the case studies domestically ready, then we can take it to the global market. Same thing happens in US. NGA and all these organizations do that. Any new organization coming up, they get kind of support from the government. They do a domestic correction, they do have data, and then they go out. And that is one of the key aspects, and that is how the things can grow. Second thing, I think the associations like SIA, INSpace and all these things, where they are bringing in delegations from Hungary and other places, that helps both the countries to understand each other's business. Like if Árisz is here and we are talking, we know now he is working in defense and what kind of defense scenario is there. Can we collaborate? For going global, I can't go out and conquer the world single-handedly. Now the world is of collaboration. So such kind of interactions, delegations are the key. That's my take.
Thank you. Vasudeva, if you would want to.
So when we come to the part of EO, whether you talk about a foreign collaborations or having a domestic collaboration, one and the same as part of it. But when we talk about creating a solution based on the data, that's where more crux comes into that. The agricultural scenarios in India may not fit back into Europe, right? So because the things are there. There they have a very bigger agricultural lands where we talk about a lot of various kinds of analysis can be done. When it comes to the part of same kind of scenarios in India where our agricultural lands are not in a defined manner, so everything is a smaller sizes, different shapes of it, that doesn't fit into that. But there are certain areas like defense, right, that can fit into what you call our own domestic requirements, where if you can able to create a solution which is of global in nature, you can automatically get onto the global nature. So based on verticalization of solutions, you can go to the global, but proven that in domestic it has been successful. But there are certain areas, as we talked about, agriculture that may not fit into another areas.
Thank you. Árisz, if you have any thoughts on this.
Yes, maybe not so much on how India can internationalize but it's kind of similar from our perspective as well. What we see, and obviously in Hungary's case, it's a very small market with a very small base for commercial EO products, unlike in India's case. So when we needed to look at strategically how to develop our technology or our services, it had to be looked at from an international perspective or international context from the start. Nevertheless, it is important to mention, I think, we don't talk about it as much anymore, but there needs to be a governmental push or an anchor customer relation if you want to, especially if you want to do something in upstream. Because if it's only data processing, that is not that capital intensive as building out the infrastructure itself. Nevertheless, there is an importance of an anchor customer or governmental customer in our case as well, but we needed to look at our markets from an international perspective as well. In Europe, it's a bit of an evident one because the European Space Agency is the first step, but since we've grown and since we've had a very, like a crystallized strategy on how we want to proceed, we are looking beyond Europe. Europe is there as a good base, but we are looking at foreign markets where we really have the opportunity to build long-lasting partnerships, where it's not as process-oriented as the European Space Agency is in most cases, but where we can really build on collaboration and create something new. And India is one of the markets that we are really seriously considering to enter.
Thank you. Deepak?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I totally disagree that actually, like, you know, the agriculture, because there are large farms in US and Europe, right, the Indian solution would not be working there. I think that's a wrong thought process. For very simple reason is that actually if I'm able to identify in a plot size of 0.3 hectare exactly what is crop, it doesn't stop me actually identifying crop which would be in 3,000 hectares. So other way around would be difficult. For an American or European to come and create a solution for Indian market would be difficult. But when Indians want to create a solution for American or North or European market, is not that difficult because ours is very hugely complex ecosystem. The challenge of the payments, challenge of the farmer's income, somebody who is making $40,000, right, for him to spend $500 is not that great. While our farmers actually, they are making like, you know, hardly $3,000, $4,000 US a year. So I believe like, you know, Indian agriculture based solutions for related to EO, we need to think like, you know, out of the box, especially when we are targeting the bigger market. So don't, you said global south. I would say that India should look at, we are at great position to look at both the south and the north. So our solution need to be developed for both south and the north. We have possibility of doing that. Second is that the climate change which we are seeing, it will make it important for all of us to look in those areas. India is among those countries which are having the biggest possibility of impact because of climate change. Right. So again, if you see Ethiopia, India, Philippines, Indonesia, these are some of the countries where you will find that climate change is creating a lot of work. In like, you know, our yield of wheat is going down substantially. And with the right EO data, we will be able to at least like, you know, be prepared about these challenges. And these solutions will work across the globe. And I believe like, you know, I would not be surprised if another 10 years, 15 years, the best of the EO-based agriculture solution comes from India.
Thank you. That's always good to hear. Before we conclude this session, I wanted to know if there are any questions from the audience. We have one question, two. Can we have the questions? If you would like to give it a start.
Okay. Am I audible?
I think so, yes. Let's go ahead.
Okay, great. So my question is to Mr. Vasudeva. So you talked about building a platform. So where building a platform where satellite data or the Earth observation data can be taken in and maybe converted into an insight as a service. Now to build as a platform, to build that platform, what kind of a business model one should go after? Because typically one person can may run into a chicken and egg problem because unless you get the customer, why would somebody give the data? So how do you solve that problem?
See, when we talk about building a platform, there is a requirement which has been there. So based on that requirement, as speakers also talked about, sit with the customers. Like since you are being from the industry and you want to sit with a government customer to understand the problem statements. It could be disaster management, it could be the agricultural forecasting scenarios, or it could be infrastructural monitoring kind of a thing. To have that kind of scenarios, what end customer wanted is not the bytes of information. It's not raw pixels out there. They wanted is insights about it. So you build a platform which talks about consuming the data from various sources of information available. Some are from open, some are from commercialization. And based on that, you create insights and provide that insights as an API, which can automatically get integrated into a government platform or any platform which they already have. That's the more crux of it.
So you were saying that some investment is needed to get the data first and then look for the customers?
That's one area, but otherwise if you want to do trials, there are agencies who could provide your data for few months of it, where you could able to build a solutions out of it, go and demonstrate to the end customers, get the concurrence from the customers, and then you go and start buying the data.
We had one question from that side. Please go ahead.
There is movement to sovereign data and protection of data there are GDPR rules for the country and things like that, right? So what is the application or how are the companies looking at in terms of having that data protected within the country, A? And are there any AI models that also are being worked on, which basically helps correlate those data points?
Last part I didn't get.
So there is data and there is correlation, right? So are you also guys working on adoption of artificial intelligence to sort of automate certain things?
Exactly. So now if you talk about edge computing, that's one of the biggest example of artificial intelligence. And any application, if you want to have a quick turnaround time, of course preparation is more because the training data has to be good enough and voluminous enough, but without AI you can't think of analysis now because the user needs the data at near real time. Hence you need AI. But to clear the myth, at least in image processing, you will see artificial intelligence was used long ago. If you look at classification techniques, which you will agree with me, object-based classification techniques, they were all using ML and AI. So it's now a buzzword, so people are thinking about it, but in image processing, this myth was not there, right? Second is, when you talk of data security is anyway a prime concern, which I think Vasudeva can tell better than me, because people try to keep hacking your server every day, practically, right? So you have to have a very robust data security, otherwise your data will be leaked. So that goes without saying that you can sell data or you can provide data without having proper security. Will you like to add on this?
Thank you, Dr. Deb. Actually, we have to close this session, but our panelists will be there to answer your questions post we close this session. Just to summarize, we discussed how the Earth observation sector is undergoing a structural transformation. We discussed how there is a transition from traditional revenue streams centered around government contracts to moving to freemium model to insight-driven and API-enabled models. We talked about not only focusing on user mapping, but user engagement as one of the core aspects of looking at how commercial products need to be developed in the Earth observation sector. We talked about how important is public-private partnership and the engagement with the industry, with the users is critical to how we would like to take forward, how we develop the business models of the future. So there's of course a lot more to discuss, and I'm sure all our panelists will be thrilled to answer your queries. And I thank all of you for being here, to the panelists and to the audience, to listening to this session. Thank you once again, and with this I would like to close this session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As a token of gratitude and appreciation, we now present mementos to our eminent panelists. Ms. Annaya, Narain, ma'am, please present the mementos to the panelists. To whom you can just give. Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I invite Lieutenant General PGS Pannu, Senior Advisor, SIA-INDIA, to present the memento to the chairperson. Can you put forward to the group picture, please? Thank you. Now we have a short networking tea break. After we'll resume next session at 4 o'clock.